Welcome to the intermediate stage. Let's have a look at what we have in the intermediate stage. We have the weave, the yo-yo, fake, claw, gap and drop. And as I mentioned earlier, what you would notice is that 2-in-1 happens to be a prerequisite in 3 of the tricks, and the rest require 3 ball cascades. So let's have a look at some of the tricks in the intermediate stage. Let's start with the first one, which is the weave. What does a weave look like? A weave is basically 2 in 1 hand with the second hand doing a trick in the middle. Now, in the intermediate stage, in this trick especially, what's important to note is that your 2 hands should be independent. For example, these 2 hands would be doing columns like this, while your left hand would be going in this direction. While this might seem simple, what you would realize is that it takes some time for you to establish that interdependence between the 2 hands. Let's have a look again. That's the weave. Yeah, so you need to practice it. There are no further tips to be given. All you need to do is to get the 2 in 1 hand solid and get the second hand in the form of an 8, going through the pattern, and you get the weave. The other pattern which is important when we move to the fake and yo-yo is the clock. Let's have a look at what the clock looks like. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it's something like, patting your head and rubbing your stomach. It's really difficult to tell your 2 hands to do 2 different things. Your right hand is throwing like this and your left hand is moving like this, which might be a bit hard in the beginning, but work at it and I assure you, you'll get it within a few attempts. Here we go again. That's the clock. Yeah, that's the 8 and that's the clock. Let's now move on to the next trick. That's the yo-yo. Yo-yo again requires you to have the 2 in 1 in really good shape. Yo-yo is something like this. It's like, a magnet attached to one of the balls. That's the yo-yo. So once again, nothing much to be explained. All you need to do is to get the 2 in 1 hand going in one of the hands and to have your left hand follow one of the balls. One of the key things to note here is that the balls, when they move up and down, it's not a linear motion. They decelerate and they accelerate. So that needs to be borne in mind when your left hand traces this ball. So this hand needs to accelerate, and when it goes up, it needs to decelerate. So it can't be a straight motion, it needs to be an accelerate, decelerate motion. Let's have a look again. Yeah? So you notice the acceleration and the deceleration? So what did you just see? What you just saw was the yo-yo in the other hand. So as I said earlier, you need to master the yo-yo in both the hands for you to really have a really good performance in front of the audience. Here we go. Let's switch hands. And one thing you require for this is patience, and you also require practice. This 2 in 1 hand is really frustrating because you attempt and the ball goes all over the place. It's really hard to make your left hand do what it's not used to, but you practice and I'm sure you'll master these 2. So what we've got so far is we've mastered the weave and the yo-yo. Let's make a mark here. That brings us to the next trick, which is one of my personal favorites, which is the fake. A fake is actually an extension of 1 up, 2 up. What's 1 up, 2 up? If you remember, 1 up, 2 up is this. Yeah? Your right hand juggling 2 in 1 and the left hand throwing the ball up. So in a fake, instead of throwing the left ball, what you do is you follow the pattern with your hand instead of throwing the ball. And that's why we call it a fake, because this is not really throwing the ball, but it's just following the pattern. Let's have a look. Yeah? So what we're doing here is just following the outer ball instead of tossing it up. That's tossing it up. Fake is just following it. And do make a note that it's important to follow the outer ball. I'll tell you why. Because this pattern would be important when we move to the next one. That will be the factory. We'll see factory in the advanced stage. So ensure that you follow the outer ball. That's doing a fake with your left and right alternate. So practice these three till you get them solid, and you would have covered significant ground in the intermediate stage. Let's now take stock of the intermediate level. What have we learned so far? We've learned the weave, and within the weave we've learned the 8 and the clock. We've learned yo-yo, one way and two way, and we've learned the fake, right and left. Now the next three have the 3-ball cascade as a prerequisite. So now we're going to learn the claw, gap, and the drop. Alright then, let's now have a look at the next three, which is the claw, the gap, and the drop. Let's have a look at the claw first. You know, it's quite a funny name for a trick. The claw essentially is about catching the ball at the highest point rather than at the lowest point. Let's have a look. If you notice my right hand, it catches the ball at the highest point rather than like this, which is a normal 3-ball cascade. So if you look at it, it's just a minor variation of the 3-ball cascade. All I'm doing in the claw is, instead of catching the ball here and throwing it this way, what I'm doing is I'm catching it here and I'm throwing it this way. Now this is a difficult step. You know, you're used to catching the ball and throwing it this way, but it takes some time for you to get control over the throw which is made this way. So try and practice this. Try and get a feel for the amount of effort you need to put in to get the ball in the same trajectory as a 3-ball cascade. Yeah, once you've done that, all you need to do is, instead of catching the ball here, you're catching it here and throwing it this way. It's a nice interruption in the 3-ball cascade. The trajectory is just the same. Now you could do the claw with your other hand, with my left hand. Let's have a look. That's the claw with the left hand. Again, you're bound to drop balls in the middle, but yeah. This is the claw with your left hand. Now let's try the claw with every hand. This looks awesome. Once you master it, you're bound to enthrall any audience you perform with. Yeah, now we've got the claw. Let's look at the gap. What's a gap? A gap is basically juggling n-1 balls instead of n balls. So in a 3-ball cascade, instead of juggling 3 balls, if you were to juggle 2 balls, then you've got 1 ball less, which is called a gap. Let's have a look. I've got 2 balls here. I'm going to juggle this in a 3-ball cascade pattern. And it's going to look just like the 3-ball cascade, except for the fact that I'm going to be juggling 2 balls instead of 3. If you notice here, one of my hands is faking a throw without a ball. Now this is really good whenever you drop the ball. Let me show you how. Let's say I'm juggling 3 balls and I drop a ball. Now I could do a gap and pick up this ball. Just have a look. Yeah. So I've been juggling a gap and I smoothly insert the 3rd ball. Let's have a look at it again. I've dropped it again. The timing is important here. You need to know when your gap is in the right hand and pick up the ball accordingly. One last look. Yeah, there we go. So that's the gap. A gap is about juggling n-1 balls instead of n balls. So in a 3-ball cascade, if you juggle 2 balls, you've got 1 gap. That's the gap explained to you. Let's have a look at the drop. Drop again is a similar variation. We need 1 more ball now. Here what we do is we juggle 3 balls. We've got the 4th ball on the ground and we're going to get this ball into the pattern. Let's have a look. So what I've done here is, instead of juggling the normal 3-ball cascade, one of the throws I let the ball fall and pick up the ball on the ground and bring it back to the cascade. Now this might sound simple, but believe me, it's a really difficult trick to master, because your hand almost automatically goes like this. It's really difficult to tell your hand not to catch the ball once you've got the 3-ball cascade, to let the ball fall and break the rhythm, pick up the ball from the ground, and then bring it back to the pattern. Let's have a look at it again. There's a normal 3-ball cascade. I drop this ball and get the next one. I drop this ball, get the next one. Oh, I drop this. Let me do a gap and get this back. I've done the gap. Let me do a drop. There we go. So there we are. So we've learned the gap and the drop. The funny bit about the gap and the drop is that it's about turning your disadvantage to an advantage. Suppose you happen to drop the ball in the middle of a 3-ball cascade. You could use this as a trick, as a trick which can buy you time and get you to the ball where you've dropped it, and then bring the ball back to the pattern. So that brings us to the end of the intermediate stage. So by now you are 2/3 a master juggler. Let's now go to the advanced stage. Now we come to the advanced stage. That's the exciting bit of